Now, in this section, we will study the animals, and then we have two sections underneath. We will explore the invertebrates versus the vertebrates. So, animals are mainly multicellular heterotrophs, and they ingest other organisms, and then they grow and develop through a series of stages in life cycles into an adult organism. And then the adult animal will have male and female parts and release release eggs and sperms and undergo fertilization to give a new zygote, and then it starts all over again. Now, animals' reproduction is a much more complex process, and not just the reproduction, the development, which is called as the morphogenesis, which is studying the different stages of development, is very much in depth. We could spend a whole semester just to understand morphogenesis in animals, but quickly we will look at these, that animals will develop through a series of stages, and that's called as the zygote, which is a fertilized egg, will undergo divisions from one ball of cells to numerous balls of cells. And again, this is the reason to have more surface area. Now, this new ball of cell is called as the blastula, which you really don't have it in your book yet. But the blastula undergoes a sort of invagination in which it gives rise to layers of cells. And these layers of cells are called as the ectoderm, mesoderm, and the endoderm. Cells will form the skin and the surface outside easier. The mesoderm cells will form more like a digestive tract and the cardiac cells. And the endoderms will form, for example, the nervous tissue and so forth. So, all of these, the different layers will form different kinds of cells in the animals. But the cells interact, all of these cells that have different functions interact through epithelium and connective tissue. So when we talked about cells in the beginning, we talked about general cells. Cells that are alike, they have the same common function. They are grouped together in what are called as tissues. And then tissues will then later form organs, and organs then later form organ systems. So, for example, if you look at digestive system is composed of the stomach, the intestines, and the mouth. So those are all different organs. Then within the stomach, you have tissues. For example, the epithelium tissue will be this tissue that is connecting the inside lining of the stomach. So we will see a lot of this development that is unlike in the plant and the fungi kingdom. So first we will, however, study the invertebrates. And the invertebrates, as the name tells you, they do not have the vertebral column. So that's why they're called as the invertebrates. And these are the soft, they have soft tissues and sponges and cnidarians and earthworms and stuff. So we'll talk about a lot of these. They're pretty much favorite. We can spend. I wish we could actually see you all in the lab, and I would have shown you all these different kinds of creatures that we have. We have a nice collection at the college here. So if you look at before we go into it, let's just look at the evolutionary trend. That in an evolutionary trend, we will find that the organism will start getting larger and greater in size. See a lot of compartmentalization, which means that certain groups of cells are masters in one kind of function, and they're grouped as to tissues and then organs. So instead of, I consider that the prokaryotic cell is more like a one-room place. So if you're living in one room, whereas you're more like a mobile home, that would be your prokaryote. And then as you divide, and you can have a differentiation of different areas in the room. And if you divide your mobile house into two parts, that's almost like getting into a eukaryotic cell. And they have a lot of different activities that keeps the organism alive. Most animals that are present are bilateral, which means that they can be divided in half. So you can have the left and the right side that's called as a bilateral, two different parts. They also have a mouth, and they have two openings, one the mouth and the other is the anus. The body organization is such that they have, now we're talking about invertebrates, so we really don't have a proper brains in the beginning of some of the simpler ones, but they have some sensory cells that can relate to environmental conditions and signals, and they're usually concentrated in the region which is called as the head. And then you will see a lot of segmentation of the body from the front to the back, and this is present in many different invertebrates. Think of the little caterpillar or earthworm. You know, all these little segments that you will see are going to be very common in the invertebrates. Okay, they also have body cavities, which is most animals have a coelom and a complete gut. That is that they have an opening which is called as the coelom. So if this was taken a cross section means that you cut it like this, and then you're looking out from the top down, and then you have this opening which is the coelom. And the coelom in animals are also there because we have a complete opening from the mouth to the anus. Same thing with the small animals. This is the gut cavity that we're talking about, something very unique in animals. So now let's look at the first simple group, which are called as the porifera or porifera, and these are the sponges. Beautiful if you've ever visited an ocean or somewhere near lots of water and sea, you will find them. The sponges are mainly aquatic animals, and they actually have no symmetry, no tissues or organs. They're more like a colony of small little flagellates, but more of the same kind of cells, and they have a greater division of labors as well. So some cells are more good filter feeders. Some cells are more giving you a skeleton because they have silicon and calcium deposited on them, or spongin, which is a protein fiber, and they have cells that are flattened, which will form the body wall. Very pretty looking creatures. They can be bright red, for example, in here, which is a bright red sponge on a temperate sea, or you can have, for example, more like a framework that is present in here, which looks like a very delicate framework, but these are actually because there are tons of silica deposited in there, so it's giving you this mesh-like structure. Sometimes you can have a barrel-like structure that is shown over here. And sometimes you have the typical vase-like structures. So next time when you go to the sea, or you're looking at a seaside, look for sponges. Very small little creatures present, and as the name tells you, they're going to have lots of holes on their bodies, so you're able to recognize them. Another thing that you find in aquatic animals are, actually I forgot to tell you one word in here, and that is the hermaphrodites. Hermaphrodites means that they do not have distinction between male and female. So the same organism is going to produce eggs and sperm, and the zygote will develop into a larva, and this larva is going to be a free living and then start a new animal. So there's no differentiation of male and female in here yet. Let's look at the next one, which are the Cnidarians. The Cnidarians are also radial, which means that they're round, and you can pretty much divide them more like a pizza in any ways. You know, they will all have some same kind of pieces. Not a very good drawing here of cutting a pizza, but anyways. So these are they're radicals. They can more like a clock. They have a gastrovascular cavity, which is also used for respiration and digestion. So they're sharing two different functions in the same column. These are your jellyfishes, corals, and sea anemones. Very pretty structures. I don't know if you've ever seen a sea anemone. Maybe next time when you go to a pet store, stop by the marine, the saltwater tank, and you will see all of these over there. They have a very simple nervous system. So actually we see the beginning of a nervous system, a rudimentary nervous system starting from the Cnidarians. The poriferas did not have any kind of nervous system. They just had cells that were probably sensory cells. They have a hydrostatic skeleton, which means that these little arms that they give out that you can see in the jellyfish, they have proteins in them and silica in them that gives you a structure to, and sometimes they also have water pressure that is going to be flowing through the membranes to give turgor pressure, and thus create, we don't call it turgor pressure because they're animals here, but they give you more a skeleton for these. Some are commercial and some can be symbiotic with algae. So this way they can live by themselves or they can live along with the algae in a symbiotic relationship. The next group we want to look at are called as the nematocysts, and the nematocysts are usually they're very unique organisms, and they actually capture prey and for defenses, and they will be the ones that will sting you. So for example, if you look at the picture over here, you can see a Hydra that's shown over here. I don't know if you've seen a Hydra elsewhere, but Hydras sometimes they look like little creatures, very fragile, but they can actually ingest a whole little organism, which is called as the Daphne over here. If I had you in class, I would have brought you Daphne and Hydra and shown you how the Hydra uses its tentacles, those are the arms, to capture the Daphne and actually ingest it. So these are the Cnidarians. Very interestingly, they have these are the little tentacles that they have that they can trigger and capture the animal. I mean, the small little animal, the bug that I was showing you in the picture before. Then we come to the next group, and these are the flatworms. Platy means flat. Flatworms are your liver flukes, and they are flat in appearance as it's shown over here. This could be your tapeworms and your flukes or liver flukes. They have eye spots over here. They have a bilateral symmetry. They have nerve cords. They're also, however, still hermaphrodites. But this is the beginning of simple little organ systems here, because they do have a digestive system and they do have a nervous system. Very rudimentary, but it's starting. And these are called as the platyhelminthes or the flatworms. Next we have the roundworms or the segmented worms, and these are the earthworms and the leeches, and they also have a closed circulatory system. They have a digestive and excretory system to get rid of waste. So there's more organization of systems here. They don't have brains, but they have ganglia. Ganglia are more like nodules. So if you have nerve fibers growing all around, so they all of a sudden they start having these knots that starts giving out signals and receiving signals, and these are called as the ganglia. They also have some sort of a muscle tissue and some sort of fluid. They don't have really in the chambers that act as a hydrostatic static skeleton again. So this fluid gives it a more skeleton firmness in there, but they're still hermaphrodites. Next, we're looking at the next phylum, which is called as the mollusks. Mollusks are very pretty, very beautiful to look at. They are the soft body with mantle in them. So here are all your different beautiful images of your snails, and I mean this is just outrageously beautiful kingdom, the mollusks, because you have the land snail, and you can have they have the chitons or the scallops and clams, and all of these are all parts of the phylum mollusks. There are hundreds and thousands of species in them, and they're called as the mollusks because they have a soft body with a mantle. That's how you recognize them. And then you have another kind of mollusk that is called the cephalopods. And cephalopods are the fastest and quickest. They're very smart invertebrates because they can detect prey and they can go and capture them. They also have a mantle, but they are just placed slightly different than the mollusk. About 500 million years ago, cephalopods were the top predators in the open seas, and they lived inside a shell with multiple chambers. So except for a few species of the nautiluses, their modern descendants have a highly reduced shell or none at all. So if you look at those images that are shown on the bottom of the sea or the ocean, and they have these beautiful colors in them, they're all cephalopods. And lastly, we are looking at the last thing, which are the echinoderms. The echinoderms are the starfish and the sea urchins and the sea cucumbers. They're the invertebrates, but they have an exoskeleton that is composed of spines. The exoskeleton is actually made up of calcium carbonate and different other minerals that deposit in them to give you this unique radial echinoderms. As the name tells you, they have a dermis layer on them. They also have a water vascular system, and they have tube feet. So if you look on the bottom of the echinoderms, they actually have it's kind of hard to, yeah, there they are. You can see the tube feet that are shown to you in these diagrams. They are radial, but bilateral trait appears in larval stages. So a lot of these we didn't really see a lot of bilateral. The only bilateral part we saw in these were the mouth and the anus. However, in the animals, as I said earlier, we'll see the bilateral invertebrates, which will be a left and a right. So this concludes our mini lecture on invertebrates.